Hey, what's going on YouTube? It's your boy Keith the Guy, and we got some fish to fry, and I'm excited to be here with you guys again today. Now, I don't know what brought you upon this video, but I'm sure glad you came. But what we're learning today is how to grade footage using only one node. Now, I'm gonna give you a fair warning. This is a paid product, but this product is not being sponsored by this video know-how. I just really love this one particular effect that gets the grade going. And sometimes I kind of just don't want to go through so many nodes to get to a certain look. And any editor and any colorist would know that it's all about the image that we present to the audience, right? And I'm all about efficiency. So efficiency, as I mentioned many times on all of my videos, is how do we get to a certain place without the loss of quality, but quicker. And I think this one effect you guys are really gonna like. So we're gonna hop right in, but the first thing we wanna do is make sure we got our project settings and our preferences all in order. The most important thing we're gonna take a look at is going to be the way we color manage. I'm gonna keep it real simple today by just sticking to DaVinci YRGB, Rec 709, Gamma 2.4, because that's where a lot of monitors are at right now when it comes down to internet browsing. Now you can use 2.2, which a lot of the great colorists like to use, such as Colin Kelly, or Rec 709A if you're a MacBook user, which I'm currently using right now, using my BenQ monitor as my reference. But I'm just gonna stick to Gamma 2.4, keep it real simple, and just go ahead and press save. I already went ahead and saved it, so I gotta press cancel. Now, you guys probably seen this particular clip many times before. You guys are probably sick of looking at it. And if you guys are interested in looking at the original use of this clip, go ahead, click on that link above. So the first thing I'm gonna do is go to waveform, and we're gonna focus on exposure, and we're gonna focus on saturation. And usually you'll get that utilizing waveforms and Vectorscope. Now, another thing to be mindful as well, let's quickly go into settings, not settings, preferences, go to general, and make sure we have use 10-bit precision in viewers checked off, along with use Mac display color profile for users. And we're gonna go ahead and type in the effect that I'm gonna be utilizing today, which is Dehancer Pro, which is a film emulation. Now it looks disgusting right now, but let me explain to you guys. This is a film emulation effect. I'm gonna go ahead, shut up, and show you guys how I use this particular effect. Now, the first thing I like to do is hold on to option and just click on input, so it can kind of bring that drop down of all of these parameters back up. And I like to do it one by one. So let's go ahead, hop right in and do some color grading. As you can see, it's kind of looking disgusting. Apparently we got to adjust some things to get that look that we're looking for. So the first thing I like to do is turn off my film grain. Now, I like a clean image in the beginning. Putting in or dialing in film grain, at least in my opinion, kind of goes either last or never, depending on what creative style you're looking for. Okay, so now that we got our film grain turned off, the very first thing you want to do is attack the input. Now, you can utilize all these parameters, but I'm not going to do that today because my goal is to get a very quick, clean, and crispy looking image. So like I mentioned before, when it comes down to the input, it's best to know what camera you use. Here are the options they have today. And I like to click on choose camera, so I can use my particular camera, which is going to be Canon R5. And I did use as a format Log3 Cinema Gamut. And I guess that's the only option they have. Now, I'm not gonna adjust the exposure, the temperature, or the tint because I kind of like where it's at right now. If anything, I'll go back if I do want to adjust that. So the next thing I'm gonna do is change my film. So Kodak Vision 3 200T is where we're gonna go. The next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna attack expand. Now, this is where we're going to be really utilizing our waveform, because expand is going to help me dial in where my black point is and my white point is, which is basically contrast. Now, always keep a special eye on the enable button, because I know that I make the mistake of ticking it off, and I'm like, yo, like, why isn't this particular parameter doing anything? That's because the enable button is not ticked on. So make sure you tick it on. So the crazy thing is you actually got to dial the white point backwards and make sure you're paying attention to the waveform and where it's going. And I want it really bright. So we're going to put it actually at 85.3. And I'm gonna show you guys a little trick later on to see if you got your exposure set properly. So my white point, I'm gonna set at 85.3, and my black point, I'm not gonna touch too much, but if I am, I'm gonna dial it back to like 1.65. I'm kind of liking that. And then the next thing we're going to do is change our waveform to Vectorscope, because now we're going to be really looking at the colors. Print is basically where, in my opinion, the meat and the potatoes, along with the color head, where the creativity and the fun actually begins. So a lot of people, which is the safe side, utilizes linear, but linear is not my goal today. I actually kind of want to use Kodak glossy paper. Now, as you could see, if I was to go into full screen mode and zoom in, it's kind of looking a little crushed in the highlights and the black point, and it's looking a little bit overly contrast. Not saying that it looks bad, it just doesn't look perfect. Now, the best way to automatically fix that is just to tick on the analog range limiter, and it kind of brings the image back to like an appropriate contrast look. Now, if we turn it off, you will see it looks a little contrasted and a little amateurish. So I like to keep the analog range limiter on. So now the next thing, the most exciting part, is the color head. Make sure you tick on the enable, and let's go ahead and adjust some of the colors. Now, let me go ahead, turn off full screen mode so we could take a look at our Vectorscope and adjust our color head accordingly. So I already know this image is a little too yellow for me, but the crazy thing is I'm gonna dial a little bit more yellow into this. So if I go to the left, it's going to put in some yellow, which is gonna be just 1.4. And you see a slight shift in the Vectorscope to kind of control the craziness with the yellow. Let's go ahead and dial in some cyan. Dialing some of that in will kind of control some of the extra yellowness that's going on in the shot. So let me go ahead, and 0.4 is good, because what I'm really going to be attacking is the tones, which is going to be the shadows, midtones, and highlights. This is where we're going to get that real Hollywood orange teal look using the tones. And so far, like I said, as I promised, we're only utilizing one node, and it's doing all of this. So let's go ahead and dial in some blue. So let's see which way. Okay, if we go to the left, it's going to bring in some blues into our shadows. And I'm kind of liking negative 33.9. And then let's add some orange into the midtones and the highlights. So we're going to 4.6 seems fair. And let's bring in a little bit more yellows into the highlights, so it kind of looks like we got some real sun going on into the shot. So we're going to bring the print up, the color head up, so we got a little bit more space. And now we can get into film grain. I am very super careful with film grain, because I feel like film grain should be a subtle thing, not an obvious thing, but based on project to project, it may need to be obvious. So we're gonna enable it. And what I like to use is the 65mm ISOs in comparison to the smaller ones, because the smaller ones really bring in a lot of film grain. As you could see, it's kind of ridiculous and inappropriate in my opinion. So what I like to use is 65mm ISO 50. It's very subtle. It's in there. You don't really notice it. And it kind of gives more of a natural look in comparison to like all the others. Now you could use 35mm. It's not gonna be too bad, but it's just a little too obvious for me in this case. So we're gonna leave it at 65mm ISO 50. Now the image looks great and it looks amazing. And to be honest with you, we're pretty much done. But the next thing I really like to do is go into monitor and turn on my false color IRE and use the 16 zones to know exactly where my exposure lays. Because sometimes, at least for me, the waveform isn't enough. So if I was to turn it off, it kind of tells me that my waveform is nice and ready to go. But visually, I could see my exposures using an IRE false color. So usually skin tones would fall into the green, the light gray, and the pinkish area. And you know, it does fall into the darker gray, but usually you kind of want your skin tones falling mainly into the green area. Basically means that, hey, this is a safe zone for your skin tones. And you also got to look at the image for what it is. So anything pink and up is basically meaning, hey, your clipping is pretty bright here. And anything blue and down kind of means, hey, it's a little too dark here. But as you could see, if you look at the image for what it is, there's going to be some shadows, of course, here because he's being backlit by the sun. So that's pretty natural. But a lot of his face is green along with his skin, and shadows are where they need to be. So make sure you turn that off. What you can do is just generate a LUT so you can utilize it in Premiere Pro or Final Cut. And I like to use a normal LUT size, which is a 33 cube, and just export the LUT using that way. And let's go ahead and look at our before by disabling it, and then after. And let's zoom in. This is after and this is before. And it kind of did it all for us in just one node. Now, if you find this video beneficial, please bless your boy by liking it. And if you want to see any more color grading videos in the future, which is something I really like to do on this channel, go ahead, subscribe, turn on that notification bell, and stay tuned and never miss a color grading tutorial from your boy ever. And if you guys want to download Dehancer and actually pay for it, you can use my discount code, which I believe will give you 10% off, which I will leave in the link description down below. And, you know, that will help me get some coffee in the morning, you know, utilizing that code, even though I'm not a coffee drinker, but maybe in the future I will be. So go ahead, use that code, get 10% off. Bless you, bless me. And, you know, we both win. And that's basically it. We just fried some fish. My real name's Kit. That's it. Deuces.